How's it going, everybody? Mike back at you with another edition of 5 Minute Gaming. And this is going to be a really fun show because I have a special guest with me again to talk about a modern game that is taking the world by storm, literally and figuratively. And that game is called Valheim. And with me on the show today is my good friend David Thiel to talk about Valheim. And you may be wondering, well, why is David Thiel going to talk about Valheim? Well, there are a lot of reasons. And David, I would like to give you some major street credit right now of being the gamer and game person you are. First of all, I wore my Fiona Borderlands, this is from Tales of the Borderlands, my Fiona t-shirt today in honor of you, David, because you are Mr. Borderlands to me. You are the guy. I can't say how impressed I am with how good you are at all of the Borderlands games. You played them all, and you haven't just played them. I mean, you have played them. And you and I, the way we're different is I'm the kind of guy that it's hard for me to settle on a game. I'll play a little, but I want to play this one, and I want to play this one, and I'm interested in that one, which is kind of why I like doing the show, because I can talk about lots of games I've played, and then talk about games that others play. But David, you're the gamer that when you get into a game, you focus 100% of your attention on that game. And that is impressive in itself. And for years, it's been Borderlands for years. Before that, it was Halo Firefight. And I know you've snuck in a little Age of Empires there, just more as a trip down memory lane. But you have decided with some of your Borderlands friends, Dr. Red Dog, how you doing? And Splattermatter, to play Valheim. And when I saw, because you've been fortunate to let me in on your little group of friends that I enjoy reading your posts. And when I saw that they talked you into playing it, I stood up and took note, David, because for you to try something else is a big deal. And so I thought, okay, you've just started. I want to talk to you about this game and get all your thoughts on it. And my good friend Shane Monroe is going to be watching this. He will be watching this, David, because he has put over 200 hours into this game. Shane Monroe interviewed you at one point for his show called Retro Gaming Radio many, many years ago. You were on his show. And so Shane is right with us right now, and he is going to be anxious to hear what you have to say. So I know that was a rather long intro. I want to read about the game, David, from the Wikipedia. But before that, is there anything you want to say before I do that? Because I built you up, your Borderlands and another show. Yes, there he is. There he is.
Yeah, I got my claptrap shirt on in honor of this event. I think of myself as a video game degenerate, in the sense that once I find something I like, that's it. And I find, getting a really solid command of all the user interface on these games, so they're all very abstract, right? Why should the W key move you forward? I mean, why not? So once I find something that I like, if the game is good, I tend to plumb its depths and stay with it, because you're not going to transfer all those skills to the next one. It's going to be different. Even if they give you the option to change some things around, it's going to be, I don't find any fun in adapting to the next one. I'll do it, but I have to be motivated. So yeah, I've played all the Borderlands games. I haven't done Tale. I've done probably 3 or 4 hours in Tales, but I haven't played it to completion because, the things I consider fun aren't necessarily what everybody else considers fun, and that's fine. There's a lot of fun out there, and all different kinds of fun. So
I have played Borderlands. I played Borderlands 2. I played Borderlands, the pre-sequel, and I played Borderlands 3. I have beaten most of the games, but I have David Thiel to thank for me joining the Borderlands universe, and I'm so thankful he talked me into it, because it was a time David and I were chatting, and he was like, just give it a try. I get the game, and I'm going to play with you, and just start and get to the spot, and I'll join you. And for me, sometimes and I'm so glad, David, you talked me into that, because Borderlands, the games they're masterpieces. They're in storytelling, humor, fun, creativity. It's all there. So another show, David, I would like to really focus on talking about Borderlands with you.
Yeah. Well, just so people understand, I mean, the comments about Valheim are in the context of, what I think is fun. Mm-hmm. And I started doing this 20 years ago because I was thinking about rejoining the workforce. I had done games until 93. Then I came to Microsoft and I did interactive audio for Microsoft Research, doing some fairly scholarly things for 7 years. And then 2000, I sort of retired. And I was 50, and I sort of stopped working temporarily and had a ball and got into woodworking and learning guitar and did a lot of things that I'd been wanting to do. But in 2006 or 2005, I was really, I really need, I want to go back to work. I want to do the thing I really love doing, because the research audio and the interaction audio was not as much fun. And it's not really what I do. I'm an entertainer, and I've always entertained, got paid for it. And I wanted to go back to that. Okay. So my background, I'd done 5 pinball machines, but I primarily was a video game guy. And so I was trying to figure out in this new context in 2005, what I should do. So what do? You get a game platform, you start buying games, you see what's out there and see what interests you and so on. And I was actually having a hard time. I was really irritated with most of the first person walk around shooters. I found almost all of them took themselves way too seriously. Yes, it's a post-apocalyptic world with bad guys, and you're the only one who can save them. And pretty much every game is like this, and either that or there are zombies, and I have no interest in zombies. It's just me. And even though they're zombies now, they were people, so I have a hard time blowing zombies apart because I don't know. It's just they were somebody's child.
I understand that.
Whereas with good science fiction, with good creatures, good crazies, I have no problem blowing them away. So I was having a hard time. I was reviewing games and playing games based on movies, Batman and Spider-Man and stuff. And I was doing it, but I wasn't having much fun. And I eventually started playing Halo. And that was better, even though that suffers from all that taking itself too seriously and Master Chief and all that stuff.
It is very serious.
By it was like the third Halo. The Halo was supposed to be a movie. They put that one out. Reach. They put Halo Reach, and in that they had a section of it which was a lot more like a video game,
firefight,
but cooperative firefight, and you could have people join you. And you could do firefight, endless waves, and each wave is tougher than the previous. Gee, that feels like a video game. No story whatsoever. Thank you very much. I don't need another cutscene with bad puppeteering. Some really nice voice acting and some 3D rendering with the voice and no expression. I mean, if this wasn't in a game, you'd never watch this, right? It's below threshold. But we worked hard on this story and these cutscenes, so you're going to watch them, damn it. So that's where I'm coming from. I really like action. I like procedurally based action, not action or activity based on discovering, some clever puzzle somebody put in a table. I'm not a Nintendo guy. So that's my context, and that's what I like to do. And so we had a great time. I was playing with my friend David, and I was playing with you, Mike, and we were playing a fair amount of Halo. We're driving around the vehicles and blowing aliens away, having a good time.
Yeah.
Then my friend David had a friend who was playing Borderlands, the first version. And they said, it's this big world, a lot of funny stuff going on. You got to try it. And I was kind of like, well, I was a Halo guy. I wasn't really all that interested, but they talked me into it. And so I got Borderlands. It would be Borderlands for Xbox. And started playing that. And that was, 5 years ago. And I've played a lot of Borderlands since then.
Yeah,
that's my context, and all of my comments relative to Valheim are coming from that. So if you're not like me at all, you can discount the nonsense that comes out of my mouth. But if you're kind of more like me, you can say, well, that sounds interesting. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. So Valheim is an upcoming survival, and notice I said upcoming. It's an upcoming survival and sandbox video game by the Swedish developer Iron Gate Studio. Published by Coffee Stain Studios, it was released in early access on the 2nd of February 2021. We're talking about 2 months ago. It was released for Windows and Linux on Steam. The game was developed by a 5-person team, building on development work which Richard Svensson had undertaken as a side project in his spare time. Valheim takes place in a world where slain Vikings go to prove themselves fit for the halls of Valhalla. As one such, the player begins with nothing and soon discovers that to reach the Norse afterlife, they must defeat the evils that stalked Valheim. Led only by their instincts and occasional hints from a raven, the player must prepare to fight the sworn enemies of Odin himself. As fallen Vikings, players must craft tools, build shelters, and fight enemies to survive. The game uses stylized 3D graphics with a third-person perspective and a combat system inspired by action games. Cooperative gameplay with up to 10 people and optional PvP gameplay are also supported. And I've listened to Shane talk about Valheim, and one of his positives is he says you can either play with friends or play by yourself. And he likes games where you're not forced either way. The procedurally generated world includes several biomes: meadows, black forest, swamp, mountains, plains, ocean, mistlands, deep north, and ashlands. Each biome has a different difficulty level with different enemies, bosses, and items. A unique food system makes in-game hunting, foraging, and farming key to progression. The amount of health and stamina available to a player is dependent on the variation and quality of the food that is eaten. Valheim has received positive reviews from critics and users. As of the 3rd of March, 2021, the game is ranked as number 39 in the best user-reviewed games on Steam of all time. That right there is an eyebrow raiser. IGN gave the game a rating of 9 out of 10, stating the game has excellent art and music, highlighting a world that generates endless, exciting stories. Here's the biggie. A month after its release, it has sold 5 million copies and was one of the most played games on Steam. Now, this game is in pre-release. It's not done. And it sells right now for $20. So I did the math. 5 million copies at $20, that's $100 million. And that's split between Steam and Five Guys. That right there. And they're not done. They're still finishing this game. I believe there's 5 bosses and it's going to have 9, what I heard, 9 total when they're done. But can you imagine being these guys? David, that's the first thing I really want to ask you is, what do you think about that?
Wow. They hit the jackpot. I mean, it's great for them. I'm happy for them. I mean, a lot of people try. In fact, 4 houses down from where I live, there were some guys who got laid off. There was a guy and his wife, and they were part of a group that got laid off from Electronic Arts, Vancouver or somewhere around in this area. And so he and his buddies started up a company to do this exact thing. Not Valheim, but basically a sandbox thing, run around the world, first person, do stuff, discovered the story, discovered the mystery. I mean, the first time I saw Valheim, it took me back to this guy's product. And I would see a whole bunch of cars every Tuesday morning when all of his collaborators would show up at his house, which is where they were working to develop this thing. And this went on for more than a year. I don't know how long, but I think they've eventually dissolved it. And so he's not pursuing that anymore. And so for every Valheim, like every Pac-Man, there are probably 500 other groups of guys who tried to do this. And I won't say that the Valheim guys were lucky. I think they're very smart and shrewd, and they made very good design choices. But I would say that fortune smiled upon them in that they came out with this in February of plague time during the pandemic, where people had more time for this kind of thing than they otherwise would have. So I think that helped. And you got to double that number now, Mike. I was talking to my neighbor who works for Nintendo, and he said their sales are now 10 million.
Jeez. Wow.
As of like last week. So,
so we're talking 200
there
million.
Could be more bosses. Yeah, I think these guys can afford some help at this point. The best. So yeah, it's a phenomenon. But there are a lot of people who've been in this space. I mean, I don't even try. I just vaguely aware. Steam and Epic are always pushing promos on me, and I look and stuff. And there's a lot of games in this space, which are some kind of survival game that have economies, that things you have to do in order to survive kind of stuff. These guys have picked the right combination and are just above, in some cases, I'd say just above threshold in terms of intelligibility and understanding how to figure out what the heck is going on. And it really helps to have a friend. It's just really good to play this cooperatively. It can be very challenging to play it solo, just like spend your $20, put it on your machine and try to play it. If you don't spend some time at the internet figuring out some things, there's a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't, from a long career in user interface, I wouldn't say, there's a bunch of stuff that is kind of obscure, critical stuff that not exactly intuitive, that you really should know, right? And there aren't, the tips in the tutorials and things just don't quite get there. Now, if you come to this game, I mean, I think they've used a lot of conventions. This ground is well trodden. The WASD thing for moving around, right? They use that, and Q for running. I mean, there's a lot of conventions that have been established over the last 10 years, and they don't break any of them. So that helps them. For me, me, I'm a hand controller guy. It does work with a hand controller. The things that work. However, it doesn't really control. I haven't figured out. It doesn't control all the things I need. So, like, not only am I playing Valheim, but I'm playing it with a keyboard and mouse, which is not my favorite. But okay. I am doing it and doing okay.
And how many hours would you say you've put into the game so far?
Well, that went up today's Saturday. That went up yesterday because my buddies, my Borderlands buddies. Borderlands is I would argue, in a little bit of a crisis right now. I can explain that. And because of that, that's what piqued our interest in doing something else, because they've irritated us enough that we're looking for something else to do until they get their act together. Okay. And it's something quite specific.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's stupid. Okay. I mean, I'll describe it. It'll take 3 minutes. You buy a season pass. That means you're going to get 4 DLCs. And these DLCs are downloadable contents, great stuff. You've played them all for B3, right? Mm-hmm. Borderlands 3. You've played. And they were very inventive and fun and funny and big and lots to do and some good boss monsters. And okay, great. And that's why you paid your money. Well, they did something they've not done before. Gearbox, the publisher, this year, instead of, pointing our attention toward, let's say, B4, Borderlands 4, it says, no, we're going to stay with B3, but we're going to have a new season pass too. Yeah. We want more money. Okay. As a Borderlands guy, I mean, I've played all the DLCs till I pretty much done everything. We've done completionist in all of them, and we've done everything there is to do. So I'm ready for some new stuff. Bring it on. And so here's some money. Well, the very first thing that they put out was something called Arms Race. And it's not a world per se. I mean, yeah, it is. It's a map. It's a big map. But it's not really the sort of map that would be like in a DLC where every once in a while you have to travel to somewhere else in the space. It's just one gigantic map. It's a contest. It's like a reality TV show run by Axton and another character. And it's a fun activity once you figure out what it is. And there's a big timer, a murder cane timer thing that, limits the game pretty much to 25 minutes. One of the features of it is when you play cooperatively, if you die, this is one of those things where you're done and then you're like a ghost watching somebody else play. And that's irritating, right? But in Arms Race, there are respawn stations. And you can see them on the map, and you have to go travel there, and you go to a respawn station, and then if you're the only one left, you can hero up and bring your other 3 players back. You press the button for 4 seconds and they all come back. And this is great, and it's strategic, because typically the respawn stations are nowhere near the good loot, and you're running out of time, and so it makes for a great play dynamic. Okay, so far so good. In January, a couple months after Arms Race was out, there was an update to Borderlands 3, and respawn stopped working. You hit the respawn button, and you get to the point where you should be back, except you're not. So the game thinks you're back, but you're not back. And if you do come back, you're invisible, and that's a drag too. So this has been broken since January, and they haven't fixed it. And it's April.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. And the bug is across all platforms, because I've seen that in the forums. And, and lots of people, including myself and some of the other people in my group, have complained on the forum. So Gearbox cannot not know about this. And it's not like a hard bug to find, because it's consistent, at least with us and a lot of other people. And it makes Arms Race a whole lot less fun. And that's the only thing we're playing, because that's the only new content. So that's the crisis. We paid for new content. We don't have a DLC for this second season pass. All we've got is Arms Race, and it's been busted since January. Bring on Valheim. There you go.
Well, what I have to say about that is CD Projekt Red puts out Cyberpunk 2077, and it's got bugs, and there's a huge uproar. The media jumps on it, and all of a sudden CD Projekt Red is like this terrible company that made promises they couldn't keep. And I mean, I've seen that going on for years. I mean, often games are released with bugs, and they get fixed, and then they work. And again, Gearbox clearly isn't making the news with this, but it's the same thing. They've got a big time bug. And my point is that it's the way it is.
For anything this profound, right? I mean, this is a big part of the game.
Yeah.
And it's not a fleeting bug. It's easy to find. Normally for this kind of stuff, it would be fixed next week, right? They would post a hot fix and it would be fixed. And so it should have been fixed by the 3rd week in January, right? It should just be done. So why they're waiting for this? I mean, they're driving us. They sort of drove us out of Borderlands and in trying something else. So Valheim's hot, so we tried it. You asked how long? Oh, let's call it
maybe 30,
20 hours, 20 some hours. Some of that has been cooperative. We played with 4 of us. Some of that's been solo. And then my friend David was having some issues, not quite getting it. So I invited him to join me, and we did several hours and got it more comfortable for him, because he was just not quite understanding some things. And I get it. I get why he wasn't getting it. For people who play Valheim, I've got a house. It's probably 15 by 20. And you have to have a house because you have to sleep, and you can't, your bed doesn't work unless there's a roof over it. So you've got to put a bed in a structure, and you can't even build a bed without a workbench, and the workbench doesn't work unless there's a roof over it too. So everything in this design tells you better build a structure. And the all of this is like some kind of toy that you would have gotten when you were 9 years old, with prefabricated panels and girders and stuff. Build an apartment building kind of thing. That's what Valheim building is like. You get pieces, vertical members and horizontal members, 26-degree roof pieces, 45-degree roof pieces, and you got all this stuff, and you have to figure out, you have to deal with the terrain. I was having a hard time finding a flat enough piece of something to be able to put down a floor, and I finally figured out that if I put up posts, do a post construction kind of thing, that the terrain didn't bother me. And so then I had my posts up, and I put the floor pieces on the posts, and then I could put some wall pieces on, and then I was cooking, because I hadn't gotten what I needed to make a hoe. And you use a hoe to flatten out the ground.
Yeah.
But the hoe comes like from killing a deer that has antlers. I'd killed some deer, but I hadn't killed any with antlers.
Now, let me ask you a quick question. I know you have experience with Age of Empires, and I have not played Age of Empires, but I know it's a building game. I mean, you build, there's a lot of progression in just creating something that takes time. And so I'm of the assumption you're fine with that. You're okay with a slow development, which Valheim, I get the impression you have to do a lot of stuff. There's the grinding. Oh,
Valheim will eat up your time like crazy, because it happens in its own real time. It's not real time. I don't know what it is. It's 5 to 1 or 10 to 1. So every minute is like 10 minutes, okay. But you go through a day-night cycle. And when it's night, it's dark in Valheim, and you're cold. And when you're cold, your stamina doesn't come back. And I mean, you're not feeling good when you're cold. And there are storms. I sat in the rain all night because I hadn't built my structure yet. And so what does that mean? That means I'm sitting in front of my computer for, I don't know, it felt like forever, but it probably was 20 minutes because I couldn't sleep, because I didn't have a bed, because I didn't have a roof. Mm-hmm. So I just, sat there. I figured out how to put a fire down. And so I sat by the fire, and that kept me from, getting too unhealthy. But I couldn't really sleep. I was resting, but I couldn't sleep. So that meant that the time. So when you have a domicile and you have a bed, you can go to sleep, and then nighttime just goes. You wake up. And so if you went to bed at 10 o'clock after it was dark, you will, bam, in about a minute, you'll be back to the next day. And that's desirable, unless, how much time do you want to burn on this? Because some of the time spent in Valheim can be tedious until you get a few things under control.
So, okay, those kind of things could, I think, be frustrating enough to make you kind of think, not for me. But you were okay with being in the dark and with the fire and kind of not fully in control.
I would suggest go with friends if at all possible. Play with somebody. I mean, if you were interested in Valheim, I would invite you to join my server. They make it fairly easy to set up a private server, and then you would see me and you could join me. Now, you'd be almost naked. You have a modest set of briefs around your junk, but that's it. You're naked, right? In the world when you show up, and you need pants and you need a shirt, and it'd be nice to have a helmet. They don't ever worry about shoes as far as I can tell so far, but maybe I haven't seen anything about shoes. But basically, you want to get dressed, and then you want, armor and stuff. If you're going to do any combat, you're going to have to build up to that point, because you're a snowflake when you first show up. But if you joined me, right, I can give you that stuff. I can give you some of it and kickstart you. I can also show you just some of the mechanics. And so one of the people that I play Borderlands with is in near St. Louis. He's in Missouri. And he and his son, by the time we joined them, had more than 20 hours in on Valheim. So that means they had 40 hours in because his son, is 10 times better at video games than I'll ever be. And the two of them together had built this 2-story house with a fort around it, walls and all this stuff, and had built a bridge over the river so they could get to the other side. I mean, they had done a lot of construction. And they mimic a lot of stuff. If you're doing construction with a hammer, the hammer wears. So at some point, the hammer's useless. You better have the resources to craft another hammer. Same thing for the axe. You swing a stone axe, and so you got to pick up wood and some stones, and I think you need 4 stones to make a stone axe.
I'm going to show you a picture real quick.
Yeah.
That I just took a screenshot from the game. So tell me, is that type of structure, is that how many hours is going to take you into the game to even get something like that or like that?
Oh, unless you're an idiot savant, I'm thinking 30 hours. It would take a while to do that. See, because you have no wood.
So you got to chop trees.
Chop down a boatload of trees to be able to do that. That's a lot of wood.
Now, how about this?
Oh, for crap's sake. Let's hope you had some friends and everybody was working toward a common goal, because doing that solo, that would take a while.
All right.
That would take a long while. Yeah, I mean, it's like knitting. You place one. Okay, so you look at this picture, right? All those supports, you can see, pick one of those vertical supports. You can see the ones that have a horizontal member.
Yeah.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. If that goes to the roof, there's 5 pieces that had to be placed, one on top of the other. And then those horizontal pieces, which are roughly the same length, there's, like 3 or 4 of those. And placing stuff, it's not tedious, but is fussy to get the right orientation. I think I've got to go into my system settings and turn down my mouse sensitivity, because I'm finding it very, hard to get that exact right thing so that the piece is in line with this piece and horizontal and in line with all 3 dimensions. It's tricky, doing this kind of construction in 3 space with a keyboard and a mouse. So these roof pieces, the first piece that you see on the left has 4 little things sticking out of it. Okay, that's one roof piece. So what do we see here? I see like 100 roof pieces placed on this side of the roof. Every one of those laid down one at a time. So that's what I mean. It's and each one of those piles of wood is 50 pieces of wood.
So let me ask you a question, David. And this is more for me, because to me, is that fun? Because to me, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that like world building, but I myself, I mean, the grind, I don't know. Maybe I have to be in the right frame of mind, but to me, I look at things and think, okay, I don't have the time.
That's fair. You may not. I mean, that's why I said at the beginning, this game was fortunate that it came out in plague time. Mm-hmm. When people have more time, they're not going anywhere, right? They're just at home. And so you can forget your troubles. And it's quite satisfying on the other hand. I see this and I'm in awe. Wow, that's a terrific place. Holy crap. Those are beautiful structures. Even my friend, John, he has this 2-story place, and you put chests in it, and they have all their goods sorted by chest, and there's a lot of goods, right? You pick up dandelions in this game. You ready for that? Thistle, dandelions, all this stuff, because later on you're going to have a thing where you can make herbal drinks and stuff that make you feel better and things. So as you're walking in the fields, there's almost always something to pick up. Some kind of thing. You pick up rocks because you need the rocks like crazy. There are branches that just fall, which mean you don't have to wear down your axe. You can just pick up the branch, and now you have some, wood. So you have to keep your eyes out and be, focusing. It says, oh, I want that. I want that. You'll find raspberries and blueberries and different kinds of berries. So you're foraging all the time. And I've actually, the thing I kind of like doing is hunting. Somebody gave me a fine wood bow. That's wood that I can't get yet because it's in the dark forest and it's too dangerous for me to go. But somebody got some, I guess fine wood is from a pine tree, and they chopped down a pine tree. So they had some fine wood and they crafted a better bow. So I've got a nice bow. It was given to me by my friend John. And I learned how to crouch. That's critical. And one of the things you can see, I think you can almost see it in this picture. You can see that one ray, like over the building on the right.
Yes, I do. There
are these things that move through the scene. That basically is showing you the wind. That's a visualization of the wind.
Oh.
Okay? So when you're hunting, you want to be downwind of your prey. You want the wind coming at you, not coming from behind you and toward them, because then they'll sniff you out. So keeping track of the wind is a good idea. And then as soon as you can see like a deer, you mount your bow, right? You crouch down and then stealthily move toward them till you can get close enough, and hopefully one good shot will take down a deer if you're close enough and you hit it. And that's great because you get a deer hide, which means you can make clothes and armor and things, and you'll get a couple chunks of raw meat, which you then have to cook. You can't eat the raw meat.
Yeah.
And you can also sell, if you got a deer with antlers, you'll get like a trophy. You'll get the antlers, and that's useful for several things. But I think you use deer antlers to make that hoe you need. See that ground in front of this building? Somebody leveled that. That was all grown over, right? So somebody took their deer antler hoe and then they leveled that guy out. There's a ton of, so you here have this satisfying, tangible result, and which you can then impress your friends and share with others. And you need this space to develop more stuff and do things. You have a workbench in there. There are other things you can put in there that help you make better weapons and better stuff. And you can close the doors, and the doors can't be open. You can lock the doors basically. So when the bad guys, the gnomes and the creepy guys come, they can't get in. And you want to be back at this building before it gets dark and shut those doors. So I don't think I've said anything which is selling you yet.
Again, I have played a lot of games in my life, and some I beat, some I played for a while. This game reminds me a little bit of one called Terraria. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Terraria. Terraria came out it's about probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little bit more, but it's a side-scrolling. It has the retro pixelated look, and it's side-scrolling, but it is super deep, and it is a lot like this, where you have to hack down trees, you build houses, you have to put out crafting tables, you craft items, build a better pickaxe. And Terraria, you can play co-op or by yourself, and it's a randomly generated world, just like Valheim. And Terraria I've played some of that. I played it with my son for a while. We built a house together. It was fun. And eventually you can venture out and battle bosses. And of course, the further you get, there's more biomes, but it's all a side-scrolling pixelated look. But Terraria was a huge success. Millions of copies sold, and people still play it today. It's on Steam. But this kind of, to me, feels like a new type of Terraria. I don't think you can craft the magic and quite make yourself a god like you can in Terraria. Eventually, with enough work in Terraria, you can become invincible and pretty much mow down everybody in a second. And you respawn bosses. So in Terraria, you defeat a boss, you can respawn it with your friends and beat it again and see what kind of drops it makes. So I don't get the sense Valheim is quite that deep. Maybe it will be, though. I mean, the thing is, where are they going to go with it? It's not done.
Yeah. And it's also much more anchored in reality, right? This is really, in sort of some kind of abstract reality. The fact that, you can walk through fire and set yourself on fire, that's not good. Don't do that. Yeah. And the fact that you can't do this until you have that, and you can't do that until you have this. And they're all very, all these constraints make sense. But yeah, you do have to ask, well, what's fun about those constraints? Well, overcoming them is fun. Mm-hmm. Now, actually, I am still playing Age of Empires. Yeah. Except I'm playing 2 Definitive Edition, and I probably in a week I play an hour a day. Okay. And I play a very degenerate version where I never play with other people, and it's my solitaire basically. And I have arbitrary things. I mean, I'm really happy when I can get like a 25-to-1 kill ratio. It's crazy. So it's my solitaire, and I have a good time doing it. It's very engaging. And there are certain aspects at a high up that are kind of like this. You can't do this until you've done this. So you have to have so much wood. There are economies in Age of Empires that you need wood, you need gold, you need stone. That's pretty much it. And so you need people to be, farming or fishing or whatever. So
Shane talked about in the game, because he's very far, he said that the progression and the grind to get your tools upgraded, he said, gets easier. He said what he liked about it is that the amount of work you have to do to get like the metal versus then when you move into bronze and silver and gold. Mm-hmm. He said they progress it to where you don't have to quite grind the same amount, which he liked.
That's good. The grind is what part of fun. Making things so they aren't trivial, so that there's something to do, so that you can feel some achievement, sort of the Kama Sutra of fun. That's cool. That's cool. But like everything, it's a balance. It's always with games. This is the way I model games in my mind. There's let's see here. Everything below here is boredom, right? Because it was just too easy.
Yeah.
Now here's challenging, right? That's good. Now above here is frustration. No fun up here. I'm just too frustrated. And so there's this window, right? And then when you start, okay, that's where it is. But as you get good, you have to keep moving this up, right?
Yeah.
Where this is challenge, but you want to keep it from ever, going above there, because above the higher one is frustration. So that moving window that deals with people as they get better at doing a thing and keep coming up with activity that is above boredom and below frustration, that's game design. That's fun.
Now, where are you? Where are you so far?
I'm above boredom, well above boredom. I have been above frustration a few times.
Yeah.
Frankly, I just and then but then I play, with John, and I can ask him a pointed question, how do you do this? Oh, the R key. Okay. Cause I had a shield, and I was seeing that they were running around with the shield on their back, and then sometimes they would bring it out, but there was some benefit to having the shield on your back. And I had made a shield. I had the wood and the leather scraps and the whatever. I'd made a shield, and I knew how to put it on my right arm. And so if I had an axe and then I had my shield, that made me tougher in combat or killing boars, which you need for food and leather scraps. Okay, fine. But then when I'm running around, I don't want to, I need my left arm. So how do I put that on my back? And I couldn't figure out any way. Was one of the keys on the keyboard, just like the R key. Well, why not? Just feels like Linux commands, right? LS to get a directory. I guess LS is short for list in some perverse notion, but yeah. So there is a fair amount of that stuff that I don't, I just find irritating and frustrating. Once I know it, now I know it, and now I know what I can. Now it's a skill, right? When to deploy the shield, when to put it back, when to run, when to crouch, learning how to do all that and get some of that into muscle memory. The more that you do that, then the more you're just doing stuff and thinking less about the mechanic of doing stuff. So I'm moving into that space. Oh, there we go.
So I want to talk a little bit about inventory management, because that's a big part of any game, and I would like your opinions. And I found this screenshot of just some of the inventory management, but tell me what you think of how this game handles that.
I think it's good. I think they give you enough slots. So the upper left thing is kind of like your backpack. Mm-hmm. And you can see a little number off popping over to the edge. And I can't read the first number, but the second number is 300.
Okay.
And that's either pounds or kilograms, depending on, what measurement system.
Your carry weight.
Yeah. And if you exceed 300, then wherever you are, you start sweating and you can hardly move. You can't do anything. You got to dump stuff at that point. So there's a limit. That's a constraint, and that's fine. Then every one of those boxes in rows 2, 3, and 4 are, you can have a type of thing and all kinds of things. If they have a blue halo around it, that means you're using it.
Okay.
Right. So this guy, he's got some pants on, and he's got a shirt, and the third thing is a helmet. You can see that. I've never had the fourth thing, but it's obviously some kind of leather garb that he's wearing. It's probably leather armor. Okay. The top row is your action row, and those numbers correspond directly to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the keyboard. If you want to use that axe, you hit the number 1. Now you have the axe in your right hand. If you want to build something, hit number 4, and that'll immediately put you in that mode.
That's just how Terraria works. Terraria works the same way. Yeah.
No, I think these guys are walking on the shoulders of existing stuff that worked.
Yeah.
5 guys didn't create this out of nothing. No matter how long they worked.
So with the understanding that Valheim walks on the shoulders of other good games or uses mechanics, why do you think, though, we're talking 10 million copies sold in 2 months, and the game's not done? I mean, what is it about this game that has taken the world by storm? I mean, other games have done well, but we're talking about this has happened fast.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I will go back to right place, right time. that we had people looking for something to do. Having it on the Steam platform didn't hurt either because distribution is painless, right?
Yeah.
And it's cheap, literally $20. That's, bang. Okay, I don't have to think hard. I'll just, if that'd been a $60 game, I don't know how much you paid for Terraria back in the day.
It was like $15, something like that, wasn't it?
Really? Okay, it was on Steam?
Yeah, it's on Steam, yeah.
Okay, so that was early days. All those things I think helped. Now, as far as, there's a bunch of survival games out there. I mean, the last time the group that I play with on Fridays, were considering another game besides Borderlands. There was Don't Starve. Don't Starve. Yeah, there was Don't Starve, and there were several others, right? But I don't think that they were 4-person cooperatives in most cases.
I think they're just 2.
Yeah, I mean, another property of Valheim is the ease with which I can set up a 10-person server.
Okay.
Right? It's trivial. I just say, play game, start server. I don't put a password on it. And then I Discord 9 friends and say, hey, I just started up my server. And then they can go play games, look at friends. They can see me, click on it, bang, they're in my world. Done. That's crucial. And so I think that's one of the things people in this time, besides having spare time, also they have friends with spare time. And they've been doing these Zoom calls and they want to do something else besides that Zoom call. So hanging out in Valheim after a particularly painful Zoom call with some friends is probably a pretty good thing. So for all those reasons, and then within the game, the mechanics, since I haven't played Don't Starve, I haven't played some of those games. I'm not sure which elements of Valheim are making it quite so seductive. I mean, the graphics are nice, but they're nothing,
Yeah, I've read the graphics are actually pretty, like they call them like PlayStation level graphics, but I've read that the sunsets are pretty.
But the thing I will say, even though the graphics are not going to win any awards, the dynamic effects, the faithfulness to a 24-hour cycle, and storms and wind and fog and all that stuff is really well done. And then the faithfulness, if you walk into the water, when you walk out of the water, you see drips coming off of you and it'll put up in text, you're wet. And that has a consequence.
Okay.
Your stamina is not going to build up as fast until you get dry. And that kind of faithfulness to logical consequences is, I think, reduces abstraction and it makes the game a little bit more accessible. And that's always a good thing when you can do it. I mean, I don't think that they've been so slavish to that they've just made it no fun. I mean, I think they've achieved a balance between logical consequences in the world and still, having stuff to do, interesting stuff. I mean, there's a lot of mechanics, right? I mean, all your motion mechanics, you have stealth, so you can crouch, you can go left and right, forward in crouching stuff. You can run, but when you run, you see your stamina go down and you have to stop running for a while till your stamina comes back.
Sure.
Meanwhile, there's an economy, they have a very elaborate food economy. So you can eat up to 3 different kinds of food. And you want to do that if you possibly can, because each one contributes to your overall well-being in a different way. So you want some meat, you want some berries. If you can find the mushrooms are great. There's several kinds of meat. There are these little lizard creatures called necks, N-E-C-K, that little triangular green things, and you shoot them and then you take them back and cook them over a fire. And they give you, I think, a different kinds of nutrition than the meat from like a deer or a boar. So all of that works together and it's really quite elaborate. And you don't have to micromanage that, but you have to attend to it from time to time. You get hungry and it puts it up. It says, you could eat again. That's what they put a little word thing across the screen. You could eat again. That's all. You don't have to, but you're not going to feel very well unless you do it. And if you have no food at that point, whatever you're doing, if you're chopping trees or doing whatever, you got to stop and start foraging. Look at the ground for mushrooms, look at the bushes for blueberries or raspberries or whatever. Then you come back to your cabin, you take the raw meat, you put it over the fire, it sizzles, right? And then you wait for it to sizzle again, and that means it's cooked, and you pull it off, and now it's in your backpack. And if you get a lot of it, if you get too much of it, you can stick it in storage. I mean, in John's place, gosh, how many? It got like 12 storage containers, and it's all organized. Here's the raw ore that we can turn into tin and copper. Here's coal. Here's wood. Here's dandelions and herbals. It's you saw in that grid how many different things are in that overall grid. There's a lot of stuff, and I can tell you what some of that stuff is. In the second row, the farthest thing over, he's got 2 of 20 raspberries. He's got 3 cooked meat. He's got 1 cooked necktail. That blue thing is a blueberry. Ta-da. I don't know what the red thing is. The next thing over is amber, no, that's in the bottom row. He's got some amber because you need amber. You put that on wood and you make torches. So I already, out of my minor investment, really, I recognize a lot of the stuff that's here.
I look at all this and I listen to you and I think to myself, I think this could be fun, but I know I couldn't do it because I feel like if I were to agree to play Valheim, I would have to think, okay, I'm going to commit 100 hours of my life for the next month or so because it's a project. I have to invest in this character and do real world cooking and things like that. And from what Shane said, there's not like quest givers. You don't have stories, characters that talk to you like in Skyrim or other RPGs I played. I mean, this is not like that. But boy, he has been taken with it.
The tutorial mechanism, there are they're ravens or crows, and they show up, and you have to use your action button on them, and then they will tell you something that you should know. And that's by way of tutorial. And that eventually points you at the monuments, and it tells you to put like a deer trophy on this particular monument. That will open up a thing that will make the boss enemy be available.
Yeah.
And then you can go fight him. But if you aren't dressed up like that guy is, with that really nifty spear and that really nice shield and that nice armor and the other stuff, the guy in that picture, you're just going to die. Oh, and dying is interesting. When you die, you reappear. If you have a home, you'll reappear there. If you don't, then you'll reappear in the circle where you initially get dropped. But you're naked again. You don't have any of your stuff. But
you can go get it, right?
If you can safely get back to the spot where you died, there's a little like tombstone icon thing, and you can click on that and then get pretty much all your stuff back. Sometimes you will lose some of the experience that you had accrued to that point. You'll have to rebuild that. Not all of it, but a little of it. So that forces a certain kinds of conservatism. The worst thing is you're busy and you lose track of time, and all of a sudden it's getting dark and you're way the hell over here. You got to get back to where your house is. It's going to get dark. You forgot to bring a torch. You're hosed. You are going to die. It's on you, right?
And who was it? It was either David or Splattermatter that said that there are groups of people out there that will help you get your stuff back for free.
Yep.
Really something. It's like you can call on aid.
Yep. And then these people have much higher skills and much better armor, and they can pretty much go anywhere they need to go and help you get your stuff back, because you can paint yourself into a corner pretty easily.
This game though is so much like Terraria. I hear you and I can see Terraria on so many levels. And what is interesting to me is Terraria was long before COVID, and Terraria is a huge success. I mean, huge. And before Terraria, is like there's Minecraft.
But this is a point of view game, which is a giant leap in representation versus a side. I mean, Terraria and this may have exactly the same dynamics, mostly, in terms of the building up of skills and tools and this and that. But it's different. It's a different activity when you're hovering just above your character.
Of course.
And they have a zoom feature, which is kind of interesting because you can be really quite close, almost first person, and then you can zoom 15 feet above them, right? And watch your little guy running around. And that's on the mouse wheel. That's the scroll wheel. So that zoom thing is continuous and does give a lot of variety. And once I figured that one out, it made certain activities much better. I'd zoom way out, see the deer, zoom way in, crouch down, run over here, prepare myself downwind to, take out a deer because, I really need that deer skin and I really need that meat.
Well, tell me then, David, though, based on what you've done so far, what is your future with this game? What do you see?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm a busy guy right now. And I think Borderlands is going to kick in. They're going to get past their difficulties. They're going to fix AR. And this coming Thursday, there's going to be a big drop of new stuff. And this will profoundly change everything in the game. Earl, Crazy Earl?
Yeah.
He's going to have all kinds of cool stuff that he'll sell you for iridium that's never been available before.
What you want? Go away.
That's it. That's him.
So it sounds to me like Valheim is not going to be your new Borderlands.
I'm having a kind of arbitrarily good time. I'm not quite proud of my current domicile. I'm a builder. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much nonsense I've built in Age of Empires. So I've got my eye on a different place in Valheim where I want to start over and build a much nicer, armed with what I know about building. I want to build a much nicer place. But I still don't think I want to build a 2-story. I kind of want it like a ranch home because I'm getting old. I don't want to do a lot of stairs. So I'm gonna build a nice little ranch home over here that's got the things I need. That's closer to the action, because the one I built is kind of close to just it's just in the meadow where you initially spawn, and it's not anywhere near the action. And so I was wondering. I'm not sure. See, you have to, once you build your thing, there are bad guys who are trying to take your thing down. Now I'm not sure why John and his son have fortified their place like Fort Knox, but they've got these pointy sticks at 45 degrees coming out from the bottom of their wall that surround their house. I mean, they are secure. And if the giant blue trolls come, I mean, they're going to be fine. So I'm just not sure. I haven't gotten that far that I have to deal with that kind of threat. But obviously John and his son know something I don't.
Yeah.
They've prepared for Armageddon. I mean, you have to get flint. See, stone will build you a certain kind of axe, but you really want flint, which is tougher, and then you can make a flint axe, and that's lasts longer, cuts better. There's certain kind of trees you can't cut down with a stone axe, but you need those trees, so you need a flint axe to cut down the trees. So there's all that, and curiosity is I'll continue to do it as long as we're doing it with the group. I'll continue to do it for at least a couple hours a week. Okay. Now, how much solo time will I spend? I don't know. David is enjoying doing this, so I'm probably going to invite him. Maybe we'll on Wednesday night or something spend a couple hours, because that's fun. And so I'm playing in 3 different ways already, right? I'm playing with 4 people, 5 people actually, because John's son joins us. I'll tell you a funny story. Well, I don't know how funny this is. So we all joined John's server on Friday at 1:00 Pacific Standard Time. And we're in the house, except Darren, who had died out of the house and wasn't in the house when he left, when we quit last week. In the interim, John's son had put wards up. Now, I didn't know what a ward is. Do you know what a ward is?
Nope.
It casts like a spell. It's basically like a lock, and you can put these things up. They have an area effect. And so within the area of the effect of the ward, anybody who's not registered with the ward cannot open doors. Okay, John's son put up these wards. Swell. John and me and Darren and David were not registered on any of these wards. So we're inside the damn house and we can't open any of the doors. We're like locked in the house.
You're trapped.
And we're locked in the house. Darren's on the outside of the stockade, locked out. And his son, who was going to join us, who was, on the wards, was off hiking and wasn't going to join us for like an hour. So John found a spot on his building which was out of range of the ward, and so he destroyed that wall piece and made a hole, and so we could get out.
That's pretty funny. Well, and that's where, when I've read about Valheim, they talk about creating stories. Maybe that's what they mean. The story you just told me. It's not so much of a story that was written by a writer for the game, like Borderlands or Skyrim, where you have a character adventure. It's the story you told me of this funny moment. Maybe that's what the point they make is you can, all kinds of crazy things happen.
Well, yeah, it's a very human activity, really. You can get without a ton of investment. We've got 5 people, 2 of whom prior to a week ago Friday had never touched Valheim, and it hasn't taken us that long to be feeling, like we can do something. And we're all running around together with our spears and arrows and bows, and we're hunting and we're foraging and we're building and we're doing all this stuff. The guys on Friday went off to deal with a boss. I chose not to, because I'm still perfecting my hunting skills and I needed more pelts. So they all went off. They died. And I didn't go. And I stayed and I, shot some deer and things, and they came back. And then they had to band together to go back to try to get their stuff, right? So, that's a story. But my point is that we're already, choosing our own way in this space, even though we're playing cooperatively. If you've ever played Borderlands with us, I mean, it just, we have to be really doing badly before we'll agree to actually play together. Everybody is a lone wolf, going here, going there, doing this, doing that, aggravating enemies, and arms race has forced a degree of cooperation on the group because you are so fragile. And it's certainly possible for somebody to do a stupid thing like one person run ahead, aggravate all the enemies in a place where we were attempting to run through there because we're trying to get somewhere else. But if you don't go through as a group, the first one goes through, gets all the enemies activated, then the other three guys face all aggravated enemies. And the other guy's like on the other side going, what? Come on. Come on.
Well, you have different ways of enjoyment or satisfaction depending on who you're playing with. And I will say for the record, one time I played Borderlands with you a lot, but one time I joined up with you and David, Splattermatter and Cardinal Fan. But I joined with you guys and you guys are all so good. But there was a moment I think where I found a gun and I said, hey, has everyone ever shot with this? And David said, oh, I'd like to try that. That made me feel good. It's like, okay, I found something that I could share with the pros. So I had my own okay, well, that felt good. But that had nothing to do with kicking butt. It was just simply, okay, I gave something to the guys who I felt like have seen and done everything. But in Valheim, there's obviously satisfaction with doing things with others. And I like what you say about it seems that you can play by yourself. And Shane said the same thing. You can play by yourself or play with others and take turns. And there's no progression or rule that you have to do this.
No, there are going to be certain tasks. I mean, Valheim forces certain kinds of behavior because if you don't do what they've set up, you're going to fail.
Okay.
And so I think when you go off for the bosses and you're playing cooperatively, you would all have better killed your fair share of deer, or one guy who's a good deer hunter given a whole lot of pelts to the other guys, and they have built their armor and done their stuff. And so they all have stamina and they all have enough hit points. And so you can go off and actually be a team to take, because these guys, I wandered in close to the Black Forest and one of these big blue trolls. Well, if I'm 6 foot tall, this thing was 30 foot tall and it was huge and blue and I could hear its footsteps. That was the most terrifying thing. And I just like, clearly I am not ready for this. So I started running, but I'm somewhat disoriented. And so I ran further into the Black Forest. Oops. I found 2 more of those blue things, plus a whole bunch of other creeps. And Black Forest is a dangerous place, which you have to go to get certain things that you need, but you shouldn't go alone. And I had no intention of doing what I did, but I got out of there. I actually did not die in the Black Forest. I managed to turn around and run past. I mean, the only saving grace with these things is they're big, so they move slowly. But if you stand in front of them, they're going to just drop the load on you. I think you're done. One hit, because they're huge. And I shot some arrows into it, and I saw its health go down by 1%. So I didn't have 99 arrows, and this was not going to work.
Yeah, that's what happens when you first encounter a troll in Skyrim. Big troll in Skyrim, they can pummel you.
Again, I think there's an awful lot of accepted stuff that Valheim is surfing on.
Yeah.
They just put it together in their package. And I think they've just hit some thresholds, some things where, I've always wanted a game that did this and did this. And
could this game be played with a controller, an Xbox controller? Could it be? Could it be adapted?
Oh, I have been. That's my first session for 3 hours. I played with the Xbox controller. The problem is that the keyboard maps a lot more things.
Right.
And it's maybe the one thing is when you go to the control page, it only shows the keyboard mapping. And I had not been able to figure out how to get it to show me the controller mapping. I mean, I could figure, a lot of the things on the controller are, just second nature, and it was just working. But when I needed to crouch or I needed to do something, I couldn't figure out how to do that with a controller. And it's hard to take your 2 hands off the controller to invoke a function that you need off the keyboard and then put it back. So eventually I just gave up and said, okay, well, and I've done my best to get rid of what I call are the Vulcan nerve pinch keyboard combinations. Like running was Shift W, and that's what my little finger I'm trying to hold shift down and W, and then I'm trying to hit E from time to time for the action button. And I found that extremely uncomfortable. So, and I was also hitting Q, which like run, but hitting Q again doesn't toggle run off. And so, I ran into the water. I was hitting Q all the time. So I just put the modifier for walking. I put running next to run, and now I'm much happier. So I've been changing the layout to, make me comfortable.
Well, the way I get around that problem, the Shift W is I use a gaming mouse. Let's see if I can hold that up.
Yeah.
But see these buttons right here, I'll program one of those to the Shift, and then I can just hold that down while I've got my finger on the W key, and then I could solve that problem.
So, okay, so that's the other hand. That would be good too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of those that has like a grid of 9 buttons on, that I can do with my thumb. I just don't know where it is. I lost it, but that would work too. I'm probably, I don't know. I think what I'm going to do probably solo is I'm going to steal some time from Age of Empires to play Valheim.
So you're still in.
And maybe I'll play Valheim solo a couple hours a week. Then I'll play it a couple hours with the group. It'll be a low-level activity.
Well, let me ask you this in closing. Last big question is, this game is not done. It's early access. That's what is funny. It's like everyone's talking about it like it's the game to play. It's early access. So they're still finishing it. And I expect a port to Xbox and PlayStation. I can't see it not happening with all the money it's making. But the fact that it's not done, what advice would you have for the 5 people working on this if they were watching this? What would you tell them to do before they call it done?
Of the stuff that's done in the game now, my gut tells me that I've done 10% of it.
Yes, but it's important when you start a game that you start off and don't give up.
Yeah. Well, but okay, so what would I say to these guys? Well, keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, they're doing something very, very bright. I would tell them to keep heading in that direction. And I'm so far away from having exhausted what's already here that, I'm not worried. They could add 10 more guys out there. It's going to be a while before I see the first one. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of, I'm sure I could go a lot faster if I was seized upon that. Like one of our members just wants to fight, but to fight, he knows he needs all this other stuff. So he's grudgingly doing all that because he wants to go out and, kill a boss. That's what he thinks these games are. I'm only marginally interested in that. I'm really more about the building up myself and building up my house and stuff. And then when I think I'm really, I have the skills, I have the shooting skills. When you're doing a gesture, any gesture, running, crouching, shooting, chopping, after you do it for a while, all of a sudden you get this zing, you get this like little golden halo and this aura that goes zing.
That's a dopamine hit.
That's a dopamine hit, but what it means is you've bumped up a notch on that particular skill. You are now better at that.
It's a level up.
It's a level up, but in tiny increments, and then you can look somewhere and I don't know, there's like maybe 10 different or 12 different skills. There's a whole bunch of different things, and you can see where you are on them. Borderlands has that too. And but this is particularly, it is like dopamine. It's a very pleasant sound, very pleasant visual effect. Zing! It's like, ooh. And the first I didn't, and I asked John, John, would you explain what's going on when this happens? And he said, well, you've just gotten better. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You're doing good.
That's the reward factor.
Yeah, and it is. You can get that solo. You can get that chopping wood, right? Ooh, I'm better at chopping wood.
Yeah.
And you are better because every time you chop wood, you see numbers coming off that chop. How good a chop that was. 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, And as you get better at chopping wood, those numbers, when you chop, get bigger. It takes less chops, less wear on your axe, faster to gather wood. I mean, I think you were saying that some of this stuff becomes easier. Well, it becomes easier because of all those zings, and you're getting better at doing everything, mining ore, smelting ore, chopping wood, doing all that stuff. You're just getting better at it because the task is just as hard or harder, but you've accumulated all this skill, and that's always satisfying.
Well, I'll say this. If my game time is limited, I do play games. My son Kyle and I just beat Sackboy's Big Adventure on the PlayStation, and we had a terrific time. It's a super fun game. And I played some Crash Bandicoot, and so I still get around, but maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll give it a try, and who knows, David, I might just show up in your server.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Looking for some help.
Plop your sawbuck down, and I'll let you, I'll let you know when I'm in Valheim, and you can just join up, and I'll share some cooked venison with you, and I just got a cup I guess it's for like meat or something. And I asked the boys about this. They said, well, we haven't built the thing that you can, make beverages with. So the cup's kind of useless right now. So I said, okay, well, I'll put that in one of the boxes over here, because it was real pretty. And so I saw I could craft it. So I made a nice cup.
Well, so much of your experience in a game is based on your mindset. And there are a lot of games it's about beating the game. And you said one of your friends, it's about beating the bosses. But I think that this kind of game, it seems to me, you really have to have a mindset of I'm just going to go in and just do some stuff and learn a few things and just kind of enjoy that process and not worry so much about that I gotta get to that dark forest as soon as I can. It's like, okay, the dark forest is there. I'll visit it sometime. But for now, I'm just going to focus on this. And it's almost like therapy, right?
I would hate to admit how many days I was into this before I got a roof on my house. I think it was like day 15. There are some, having admitted that, I'm just going to get all kind of derisive mail. It's just like, it took you that long? Yeah, it took me that long.
Well, Shane, you can post in the comments and ask David in the comments, what? You needed to talk to me.
Well, somebody was saying in an article somewhere on the internet that you really don't want to spend a lot of time on the internet probing all this stuff.
Actually, Shane said that too.
Yeah, the discovery of it's better. Going to the internet is just going to be full of spoilers and stuff. And, what fun is that?
Yeah. I have not read much on the game except how much money it's made.
Well, I'm happy for these guys. I'm happy for any creator of intellectual property when they can hit it big.
Me too.
When they do the right thing and make people happy and can get and monetize that, I am thrilled.
Me too. And it's going to be fun to see where this game goes, because again, it's not done. And who knows, with all this success, they may be making decisions to take it even further than they had originally thought.
Well, it's a fragile thing, a company of 5 people with a thing like this. I just hope the crushing, this inrush of resources is going to take management, and that's going to be a drag. You got to find the exact right people to help you expand, because you're right. The very first task is to take exactly what they've got so far and get that out, on the platforms. And that's not going to be trivial. But managing that, it is a distraction from what they have been doing so far so well.
Well, and Terraria over the years has gone through numerous updates, some big updates where they've added bosses, they've added gear, they've expanded hugely. And so over the years, Terraria has grown and grown. And it was long rumored that Terraria 2 was being worked on. And they announced it, I think, 2 years ago. And it was last year they announced that it's rare that I've seen this, but they announced that they've given up on the game, that they tried to do too much and it wasn't working. And they just literally said, we've ended development.
Wow.
On a sequel to a super successful game. And so, like you said, it is a tricky thing. And sometimes, even with all the resources and money.
Well, the same mindset that makes you a good developer, I won't say rarely, but doesn't necessarily make you a good manager or an executive.
Yeah.
But those people are so hard to find for a creative domain. I've seen this many times. It's just, if you get Scully to run Apple, you see what happens.
Yeah, right. Well, I talked a lot about Terraria, and so I figure I'm going to put a link to my show I did on Terraria with my son Brett. And really, it's the show-off show, because Brett just simply shows off his kick-butt character that he's made that can do anything and dig through the ground, like with his machine, making a pickaxe, just a joke. So it's the Terraria show-off show, but go check that out, and you can see Brett show off his character he's built over a lot of years of gameplay. But thank you, David. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Valheim?
I don't think we should say anything else. You people go off and get yourself a beverage.
Well, it was fun. I enjoyed talking about this, and someday it will be fun to look back at the show after Valheim has evolved even more to see what you said and we talked about, because
it's early days. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.